Coming to you this month from a secret location. Besides your gym membership not getting used after February, I've got 7 predictions that I've put together around the cloud for 2020. As well, we'll be going over general cloud news as we do every month, with things that hit the headlines in the last couple of months, such as the NSA helping people for a change, Google catching up to Azure and AWS in the security space, and a major milestone for cloud, which makes those who told me years ago that the cloud was just a fad look a little silly now. So yes, I'm back after a short break over the holidays. For those who don't know, my name is Matt Carolyn and welcome to our February edition of Puck Online, bringing you a quick summary of all the major news and events in the cloud space. Every month we'll come to you in online, video, podcast and blog form, as well as an in-person event every quarter in Vancouver, Canada. Today I'm broadcasting from this mysterious kitchen, ready to serve you up the cloud news, plus a bit of a special with the predictions that I put together for 2020. With 2019 in the rearview mirror and 2020 ahead of us, I thought it was only fitting to put together a few predictions that I see coming out this year. So let's get into it. So let's start off with the 7 cloud predictions for 2020. Now, in 2019, you may have noticed there was really a lot of what I would call micro announcements, a lot of services that had been announced in the past, and a lot of features that were coming out around those, and a lot of interconnecting announcements between features. So besides the obvious announcements and focus that the cloud vendors had around AI and machine learning, there really wasn't anything that really stood out there, I felt. So putting together this list was a little bit challenging in a way, but I think you'll find that a lot of these are major things that really should focus on for the next 12 months, and we should see a lot of development in these areas, even if it doesn't hit headlines. So number 1 on the list was the growth of containers. If I was hearing that myself on your end, I'd roll my eyes and say, well, that's been in every headline since about 2014. I've definitely seen over the last few years, when I give talks about containers, that the maturity of the audience on the knowledge around containers has been surprisingly fast to evolve. However, just because everyone knows about it doesn't always translate to confidence in using it. Just like with Betamax versus VHD and Blu-ray versus HD DVD or VMware versus Hyper-V. Sorry Microsoft, I think we all know who won that war. Until there are clear standards, it's hard to get behind a product, in case you bet on the wrong standard. In 2019, I feel that Kubernetes became the standard for orchestrating Docker containers, which already held popularity. That was reflected in Azure, GCP, and AWS, all having managed offerings for Kubernetes. And I finally started seeing major security vendors having either a decent story about protecting containers or had it on their immediate roadmap. So number 2, keeping with the container bandwagon theme going here, I think we'll start to see Kubernetes being positioned as the hybrid cloud solution of choice. I remember about 8 or so years ago, cloud being positioned as a great hybrid cloud, expand your data center to it and burst your workloads to it as well. But in reality, due to latency and monolithic architecture, it didn't really work very well for most cases. Then I also recall about 5 years ago, being in the audience for a talk by a well-respected cloud expert in Canada, and hearing him answer a question about if he was seeing clients using multiple clouds. His answer at the time was no, and went on to give reasons why it's such a bad idea. Since then, I've been seeing more and more clients ask for exactly that, for quite legitimate reasons. I think Kubernetes will also be excellent here, in not only providing portability, but also similar architecture across on-premise, Azure, AWS, GCP, and wherever Docker is supported. So with number 3, I don't think this one is going to hit mainstream in 2020, but edge computing is going to ramp up, I think, with more options, features, and we'll start to take it on an evolution, which we didn't realize we needed. With 5G speeds for mobile devices starting to roll out globally, latency issues that we've had to work around are going to start disappearing, and I think this will lead to where we are going to start exploring new ideas and methods that just weren't possible before. But number 4 are focused on monitoring, where I think this is going to become more important than just keeping the lights on. I've been telling clients for years that the cloud isn't a threat to their jobs. They're not going to have less to do. They're actually now going to have more time to do the interesting things for the company, which drives the business value, and not just boring, keeping the lights on tasks like firmware patching. For those that have been on the same page here as me, they'll be ahead of the curve. For those that jumped onto the cloud and just treated it like on-premise technology just without the hardware, I think they're going to start to see more questions being asked by the business in 2020 around the value of the IT infrastructure they support. For on-premise, it might be hard to give those answers due to the static 5-year nature of the investment, which means even if you find ways to improve it, most likely it will mean spending more money, which the budget doesn't have. With cloud, it will be about improvements, like improving the company by basing those decisions on analysis, providing details which allow fine-tuning that increase performance for staff, saving money and more. For example, if spending $100 a day more on increasing the performance of a server will result in making or saving the company $10,000 a month due to less potential clients giving up on the website due to speed problems, or processes getting completed faster and therefore the server can be shut down earlier and staff can get off work quicker. These things will all add to the bottom line and can be justified in increased spending. So for number 5, now that containers seem to be hitting mainstream, what about serverless? I think in 2020, some light will start to be shed on better managing and monitoring serverless deployments. Although Kubernetes and serverless on cloud have been around for about the same amount of time, serverless I feel has been more stable and has a more mature framework. So why am I talking about it as though serverless is lagging behind containers? I think it's because the hope with containers has been to shift current solutions over to it, whereas serverless means recreating everything from the ground up, unless you just adopt it for a small piece of architecture here and there, which has been the traditional positioning of serverless for cloud until recently. So for number 6, we'll start hearing about Gitoff. This replaces CI/CD for Kubernetes environments. Sure, you can still use CI/CD in Kubernetes environments, but because GitHub or a repository of some type has become your central place for your code, you can now have GitHub automatically sync up with all your Kubernetes clusters and update your code from there, thus removing the gates at all points, resulting in a much faster with changes and greater stability. And finally, number 7, we'll start hearing about FinOps. FinOps breaks down the silos between finance, procurement, and engineering. This cross-functional collaboration can establish policies and controls, and the transparency required to make them a reality, to safeguard cloud consumption. The benefit? It prevents spiraling or erratic cloud consumption patterns and optimizes cloud consumption. Ultimately, it could save a cloud program that otherwise would have been mirrored by unexpected costs and lead to scrapping projects or questioning if cloud was a false promise when it comes to cost savings. Finance will need to understand cloud consumption models. Engineering will need to provide visibility so finance can self-serve all the information to map out cloud costs. Procurement will need to grasp the cloud marketplace and change the rhythm of their software procurement to match the cloud's flexibility. So that wraps up the top 7 predictions I have for 2020. Now to get into the general cloud news, got a few top headlines for you that came about. Ironically, the NSA has decided to help protect the public instead of threatening them as the enemy. The National Security Agency released new guidelines designed to help organizations across all sectors mitigating cloud vulnerabilities, including identifying cloud security components, threat actors, and potential mitigation techniques. The guide is designed both for the organizational leadership teams and technical staff, and is broken down into 3 sections: cloud components, cloud threat actors, and cloud vulnerabilities and mitigations. Furthermore, according to the guide, cloud vulnerabilities can be broken down into 4 categories: misconfiguration, poor access controls, shared tenancy flaws, and supply chain vulnerabilities. And next, in news that should shock some hardware vendors out there who have been saying that cloud won't be anything like hardware data center industry, businesses spent more last year on cloud infrastructure services than on data center hardware and software, according to Synergy Research Group. Total spend on cloud infrastructure services in 2019 is expected to amount to $97 billion US, an increase of 38% on the year prior, while total spend on data center hardware and software is expected to hit $93 billion US, amounting to year-on-year growth of only 1%. And Intel's largest client base is now cloud providers. Not too long ago, it was enterprises. With enterprises, they could clearly project spending cycles and growth in revenue to investors. With cloud providers, however, it is proving very hard to predict. And finally, Google has caught up to Azure and AWS in basic security key storage with the new announcement of Secret Manager. It's designed for managing credentials, API keys, and certificates when using Google's cloud platform. The service is currently in beta, and the intent of this service is to reduce secret sprawl within an organization's cloud deployment and ensure there is a single source of truth for managing credentials. Features of the service include global replication, versioning, audit logging, strong encryption, and support for hybrid environments. So that's all the time we have for this month. For all items we're hosting like meetups, podcasts, and blogs, check out www.publiccloud.ninja. Upcoming cloud-related events in Vancouver. The next event should be in March. We're just on the hunt for a new venue after 5 years of the same great place with CodeCore, but unfortunately they recently shut down their downtown branch. So keep an eye out on www.meetup.com/publiccloud and become a member so you become notified as soon as the details go live. This episode was made possible by CDW, who are a leading Canadian IT solution provider focused on IT, including security, infrastructure, and cloud. If you think we've missed anything, let us know in the comments section. Our next episode will be in a month's time, so make sure you subscribe. Till then, keep challenging yourself.